about 9:30, so I guess we're going to get started this morning. So welcome everyone to our gaming webinar. This is one of 8 topics available through the STF Addiction Free Living Cell. My name is Dana and I'm going to take you through the presentation this morning, and joining me in the background supporting is Lucy Martin. So thank you for joining us today. Just want to bring up a few features. We are using MS Teams. Most of you are probably familiar with it since we've been on it for the last 14 months or so. But at the top, or depending on what platform you're joining from, you will have a chat function. So you're more than welcome to chat, type into the chat any questions that you have. We also are going to ask you to use the reaction. So you'll have a button with a hand and a smiley face. We're going to pose some questions throughout the course of the presentation and ask that you just give us a thumbs up or a happy face when responding to some of those different questions. Everybody is on mute now. At the end of the presentation, I can unmute everybody if you do wish to ask questions at that point. The session is being recorded. The chat does not get recorded, but if you do choose to speak, that will be recorded and on the website. So let's get into it. Before we actually get started, just want to highlight a few things. The presentation that you're about to view is the intellectual property of the Department of National Defense. Any reproduction or retransmission of the slides contained in this presentation is strictly forbidden. Some of the topics discussed in the webinar may be of a sensitive nature and not appropriate for your children, so we do ask for parental discretion. Please understand that people's stories are theirs alone to tell, and anything that is shared by participants in this webinar, either on camera or in chat, is not to be discussed outside the webinar. And finally, as I mentioned, it is being recorded and will be available on our CAF Connection website. And though active participation is encouraged, you may simply follow along without using the chat or the video microphone functions if you prefer. I'm actually going to now take my camera off so we can focus just on the content in the screen. I will come back on at the end of the presentation when we can address our questions that we have. We'd just like to highlight some of the resources in our area. For the past 14 months, we've either been in isolation, we've had our limited travels, there's been lots of worries and stress. And so some of us might be struggling or have had some ups and downs, and just want to make sure everybody knows that there are resources in our community to support us. So I'll leave this slide up for a few seconds so that you can make note of some of those different phone numbers. I will highlight it again at the end, as well as providing you some specific resources for gaming. Now, before we actually get into the content, Lucy's typed in the chat for me a few different options. So we just like to find out who's joined us here today. So if you could either just give us a thumbs up on whether you are a military, a civilian, or a family member, so we can see who has joined us. So if you want to type it in the chat, great, or you can just thumbs up. Okay, perfect. We've got some chatting there. So we have a civilian employee, we've got, okay, some spouses, a couple military members. Okay, that's awesome. So glad you've taken the time out of your busy day to join this. And I know it's April break, so you might have some kids running around in home. And hopefully you'll be able to stay with us for the whole session. But again, if not, it is recorded and you can refer to it later. So what I'm going to cover with you this morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about the gaming industry. We're going to look at some of the problem gaming risk factors, some warning signs to pay attention to. We'll look at some of the tips for responsible gaming, and finally ensure that you have some resources available to you. One of the key messages we want to make sure everybody hears is that excessive gaming does not necessarily mean that a person is addicted. Video gaming is a problem if it negatively affects other areas of the player's life. Although most folks play video games in ways that enhance their life, for some it can become a problem. Studies suggest that gaming disorder affects only a small proportion of people who engage in digital or video gaming activities. However, people who game should be alert to the amount of time they spend on gaming activities, particularly when it's to the exclusion of other daily activities. And we always want to remember that help is available. Let's take a few minutes and we'll look at the history, the development of gaming, how it has changed over the last 4 decades. So we can see back in 1978, so about 43 years ago, was when the first video game was released, so Space Invaders. And we might have some folks on the line that actually remember playing Space Invaders. I don't know if there's anyone out there that wants to give me a thumbs up if they can remember when that game launched in 78. Yeah, there's a few people there. All right, thanks for joining today. Jump ahead 8 years. In 1986, we have a mental health experts suggesting the term video game addiction. So already starting to see that it could become a problem. In 2000, there was actually the first study of online gaming addiction. Fast forward to 2010, where they held the first controlled trial of an internet addiction program. In 2012, internet use disorder was proposed to be included in the DSM-5. And the DSM-5 is the Diagnostic Statistic Manual. So it is known as the Bible for mental health disorders and diagnosing mental health disorders. In 2013, internet gaming disorder was included in the DSM-5 for conditions of further study. And most recently in 2018, gaming disorder is included in the International Classifications of Diseases, the ICD-11. And as well, that schedule comes into effect next year in 2022. So once it's now in that manual, there'll be coding purposes for insurance, so there'll be more opportunities for folks to get treatment if and when they need it. So things have moved fairly rapidly when you think about it over the last 43 years, from the first introduction to a game to now having it classified as a mental health condition. When we're looking and talking about video gaming, there are 3 different platforms that folks can actually play their games on. And gaming is the term that's used by health organizations, and it's what I'll use throughout this presentation. So video games are electronic games that produce 2 or 3-dimensional images through the aid of an electronic system or a platform. So Lucy's typed in our 3 different platforms there. So there's computer, console, or mobile. So can you just give us a thumbs up at whichever one, or if you use more of those platforms, you actually play your video games on? So I'll just give you a second to do that. So we've got some consoles coming in there. So mobile. Okay. Yeah. All right. So most seem to be using the consoles like your PlayStation or Xbox or your mobile. Okay. Yeah, playing on your kids, right? You don't own it, it's your kids' mobile. Absolutely. Okay, thanks for sharing that, everybody. So we know that there's a variety that folks are using. The other terms that you might hear or have seen, especially in the last 5 years, are what's called extended reality. So extended reality is a term used to describe immersive technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality. And it's really over the last 5 years that it has taken off, even though it's been around for more than 20 years. Virtual reality applications are designed to immerse a user in what feels like a real world. The applications range from being non-immersive, so that you're viewing it from your computer or through your mobile device, to fully immersive, in which you actually wear a head-mounted display. Augmented reality, in contrast to virtual applications, they add on to the person's physical world to enhance it digitally. I remember probably about 5 or 6 years ago, the whole Pokemon Go craze, where folks were going around using their phone, trying to collect the different Pokemon characters and reward systems around the communities. And so that would be an example of an augmented reality. And mixed reality then is a combination of your VR and AR, and it's accessed using glasses or head-mounted devices, where the viewer sees actually their world as well as the virtual world. So it's using both of them. So comment in the chat that their kids love the actual virtual reality headset. So pretty interesting that the folks are starting to see and to utilize those to play those games. Can really heighten the experience. The next thing I want to chat about is just the different genres of games. So people may have different motivations for gaming, and many game types exist to address those different motivations. Here are some of the most common types of games, although this list is not exhaustive. So your MMO games, your massively multiplayer online games. So these games are played online with many players, usually in the hundreds of thousands. There are some potential benefits to these, especially the social connectedness. And again, this past year with the pandemic and the social isolation, a number of folks may have reached out and been playing a lot of these games in order to get that social connection. Research has shown, though, that it does have the potential to be linked to gaming problems. And we'll talk more about specific features in some games that could actually put someone at risk for developing a gaming problem. The second one is your first-person shooter. So games that rely on skills such as hand-eye coordination, reaction time, and are very fast-paced. First-person shooter games are specifically shooting games from the first person's point of view, so you're taking that role on. There are some potential benefits to playing these games: development in our perception, our cognition, and our executive functioning. And once again, they can also be linked to some problem gaming, if not monitored and used in that healthy way. Our third is casual gaming. So casual games are targeted to a mass market, and they combine components of various types of games, but are extremely easy to play. So examples of that would be Candy Crush, The Sims. Potential benefits, again, that social connectedness, and can be linked to problem gaming, but only when certain features are present in those games. The fourth type are adventure games, so things like The Walking Dead, The Legend of Zelda, and these are games that follow a journey or a story from the perspective of a hero or protagonist. They can provide that potential benefits of empathy and helping others, and there hasn't been any linking so far to problem gaming with these types of games. The fifth type of game are our real-time strategy games, such as StarCraft or League of Legends. So these are games that are played in real time with elements of planning and two or more fractions aiming towards a particular goal. Again, potential benefits are perception, cognition, executive functioning, and once again, they have also been linked to potentially problem gaming. And the final one is our role-playing games. So these are games where players take on the role or characters in a fictional universe, and often this genre is mixed with other genres. So The Witcher 3, Final Fantasies, those would be examples of this genre. Potential benefits, again, that social piece, and potentially can be linked with problem gaming. So the gaming industry, as we can see just from the different genres that are there, that has the potential to create a lot of revenue. And one other type of game that is known for that are esports. And when I first heard about esports, I did not understand it. It is actually the term for organized video game competitions between professional players, whether individually or as a team. And most common video game genres with esports are real-time strategy games, fighting or card games, first-person shooter, or multiplayer online battle games. It's expected that esports will reach 1.8 billion in annual revenue by the year 2022. Money flows into esports through media rights, live event ticket sales, merchandise sales, and in-game purchases. But most of the revenue comes from actually that sponsorship and advertising. Major League Gaming is an example. So Major League Gaming is a North American professional electronic sports organization headquartered in New York City, New York. And in 2014, sports broadcaster ESPN broadcast the first international finals, marking the first time an esports event had been held simultaneously broadcast on mainstream channel. So we can see how it has developed in those 43 years, way back from 1978. And as I said, it's all about the profits, it's the money. So when we look at how much the industry is making, do you think that the industry is making in the millions or the billions? So Lucy's typed those in the chat for me. So can you just give me a thumbs up on how much revenue you think the gaming industry brings in? So we've got a couple of folks registering in on the billions. Yeah, a few others in there. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. So record profits for games in 2019 was at 120 billion. And you can see the different types of consoles or platforms where the games were generating those different revenues. Free-to-play games accounted for 4 out of every $5 spent on digital games in 2019, thanks to strong performance of mobile games. So when you think about it now, most of us have a smartphone, and those smartphones have the technology and the capability to be able to play those games. So it's become extremely portable and very easy for anyone to join in and play. So lots of top revenue producing. And this was 2019. So this was before pandemic. So I'd be curious to see when the next stats are released, how much it has increased based upon that 2020 and folks having to stay at home. So let's take a look at what were those top grossing games for revenue in 2019. I know most of you have the chat available to you, so I'm just going to throw this question out there. Does anyone have a guess as to what they think the top grossing game would be for 2019? So we've got a guess of Fortnite coming in. Any other guesses there? I see someone's typing, so I'll just wait for that. Candy Crush, yeah. Excellent guesses. Okay, thanks for those ideas, folks. All right, I will not hold you in suspense any longer. Here we go, the top 10. And look at that, one of our participants right. You get bragging rights. Yay, good job. So let's talk about just a little bit about what these games are. I'm not going to do all of them, but I'll just take you maybe through the first 5 or so. So Fortnite is an online video game, and it was released in 2017. So not that long ago. It has 3 distinct game mode versions. So Fortnite Save the World, Fortnite Battle Royale, and Fortnite Creative. And it actually has the subgenre of first-person shooter game. The second one is Dungeon Fighter Online. So Dungeon Fighter Online, also known as DFO, is a multiplayer beat-em-up action role-playing game developed in 2005. DFO is one of the most played and highest grossing video games of all time, exceeding a total of 700 million players worldwide and having grossed over 15 billion in lifetime revenue as of May 2020. And it is a role-playing game. Coming in at number 3 is Honor of Kings. So Honor of Kings was released in 2015 and is a mobile multiplayer online battle arena. The basic gameplay across all of its different game modes involve controlling a character with unique abilities to kill non-player characters and opponents to gain experience and gold. And currently there's more than 200 million players worldwide. Number 4 is League of Legends. It was released in 2009 as a multiplayer online battle arena game. League of Legends is often cited as the world's largest esport with an international competitive scene. It's a real-time strategy game as well as the multi-online player battle arena. And the last one I'll highlight is Candy Crush. So Candy Crush is Sega is a free-to-play match 3 puzzle video game released in 2012. And it falls in the genre of casual game. So we can see all the way down to number 10, there's a lot more that are there, but those are just highlighting the top 5 games based upon revenue in 2019. So just thinking of that, as I mentioned, this was 2019. So do you think that gameplay and revenue now for 2020 will have increased, decreased, or stayed the same? So Lucy's populated those in the chat for me. So what do you think? The way of the world, the way things are going, do you expect to see increase in all this, decrease, or to stay about the same? So you can just give me a thumbs up on your thoughts. Yeah, so we've got most folks are seeing and expecting it to increase, and that's what the industry and research is looking at as well, is that we'll just see this continue to increase. So I don't know if there's a way to get in shares in some of these to continue to make some money or not. I don't know. When we look at gaming within Canada, so in 2019, the gaming industry in Canada earned $3.6 billion. About 64% of Canadians played video games within the previous 4 weeks when they completed this survey, and this survey was within 2016. And again, this is something that we're seeing is most likely going to increase. So the numbers increased yearly and may even be higher now. The average age of a person gaming is 39 years old in Canada. The average player plays about 10 hours per week. And what's really interesting is since 2012, Canadians went from approximately 20% playing on mobile devices in the past week to nearly 70% in 2018. So again, that device that's with you, it's easy to handle. Most folks have one. So that's where the majority of the time and people are using. So that brings us to the next phase of the presentation. I want to look then specifically at some of the benefits, the risks, why people game. So although it may be surprising to some, there may actually be some benefits to playing video games. I mentioned some of them when I highlighted some of the genres at the beginning. So that social connection is a huge one. In addition to fulfilling psychological needs and motivations, games may also help folks develop skills. This includes, but not limited to, our cognition, our perception, and attention. So working on some of those pieces of our brain. Our creativity. Folks learn that motivation, moving on to that next level, succeeding within a game. Emotional regulation is another skill that can be developed. And as well, cooperation and sociality, so that social connectedness. And these benefits are going to vary depending on the type of game played, the amount of time played, and the age of the player and other factors. So it doesn't mean every game is going to provide all these, but some of them will. So then why are people playing games? We know that they do provide some benefit. There's also potentially some of the negative pieces with it. So folks are playing games for that social reason, getting to know people, maybe to escape some of the real world problems. Maybe we like that competition factor. There's also those coping skills and strategies, leaving behind some of the things that are happening. Channeling our distress and anger into the game can help us maybe to improve our mood about whatever that real life situation is. There's this skill development. There's fantasy. We get to take on new identities, maybe try things that we wouldn't try in the real world. And as well for recreation. So Lucy's populated those into the chat for us. So if you can just give me a thumbs up on some of the reasons why you play video games. So the competition. Some folks are playing to escape. Recreation, good, thank you. And there's no right or wrong way about it. It's just, why is gaming important to you? Why do you do it? It's pleasurable, entertaining. It's a way of relaxing. It can help us develop skills in math, reading, memory, concentration. Games can be a source of positive emotions, especially when we're succeeding within that, including empowerment and mastery. They can help provide temporary relief and assist us with coping when we have some of those undesirable emotions going on. They can help us to connect. And they can allow us to develop new online friendships. So lots of real valid reasons why folks potentially would game. We need to recognize, though, that at some times there are some risk factors. For some individuals, and it is a very small percentage, they can develop what's called the problem gaming. And these risk factors are broken down into 5 different categories because we really need to look at it's a complex interaction between our biological, our psychological, our social, and our technology specific factors that could increase someone's risk. So when we're looking at the biology, we're looking at the age, the gender, and the genetics of the individual. So risks for harm begins to increase in adolescence and begins to decrease then in our late 20s. Gender, males have been found to be 2 to 5 more times likely to be at risk for developing problem gaming than females. And genetics, there's a genetic predisposition for some mental health problems, including addictive behavior. Under our psychological risk factors, if folks have co-occurring disorders, so if they're suffering from anxiety, depression, ADHD, personality disorders, etc., they can be more at risk. Depending on what our personality type is. Are we someone who is impulsive and takes a lot of risk? That has been linked to problem gaming. What's our self-esteem and efficacy look like? Do we feel confident in our abilities in our daily life? If not, we may be more at risk. And our self-regulation skills. So self-regulation skills are a risk factor for several different addictions, including problem gaming. Self-regulation is managing both the time and the amount of play that we are doing. So it's just knowing when to stop. Underneath the social risk factors, we look at life satisfaction. Folks that would rate their life satisfaction as high may be protected against developing gaming problems versus those who would rate their life satisfaction as low. Family influence is another piece here. So family has a strong influence on the development of internet gaming disorder or problem gaming. Poor parent-child relationships, parental restrictions, or limited parental monitoring could put someone at risk. Peer relationships influence is another huge piece of the social. So many individuals that play games are likely to have friends that play games. You know, that's how they've been connecting. Having these social pressures to play the games as part of a regular group can increase someone's risk. Within our environment, just the accessibility to the gaming. When you think of our military community and maybe, you know, living in the barracks and not having access to a lot of things, but having a console and a television and the ability to have those things right then and there at your fingertips is going to increase that risk. So the availability of it and just having the funds to be able to buy those things. And then finally looking at the factors within the games itself. So these are some things that could put someone at further risk. So there's social features within the game. So things such as the game chat or feeling that you have some ownership or connection to a clan or a guild. There's the narrative and identity features so that you can actually, you know, create your own avatar. You can choose what they look like, things like that. There's reward and punishment features that are built in games that can then make it become something that encourages excessive use and folks to want to continue to play to succeed and to achieve. And as well as just the presentation features, the graphics, the mood that's used, you know, how those visual pieces, they've come a long way since I played Atari in my basement when it was a ball and a little stick that you just went up and down and tried to knock out the blocks, and to see what the video games are now, you know, especially like as someone had mentioned, that virtual reality that their kids enjoy playing. Like it is so immersive and so realistic that people can get hooked and want to continue to play. So when does gaming become a problem? The Center for Addiction and Mental Health uses the term problem gaming, which falls under the umbrella of problem technological use, which refers to the use of digital technology. Examples such as gaming, social media, etc. It is important to note that many people play video games, online games, in a way that does not cause them harm. Unlike alcohol and other drugs, where even low levels may cause harm to an individual or at the societal level, low levels of gaming are not always harmful and may actually have some benefits, as we discussed early. And the 4 C's of addiction actually apply to the gaming as well. So you can see some of the C's listed on there if you're not aware of what they are. Compulsion, so the overriding or the overpowering urge to fuel that addiction, to want to play that game. Craving, so the demand is so hunger, it's almost becomes a physical need that you need to fulfill. The consequences, People continue to play even though there's negative consequences there. And control, not being able to control. So wanting to stop, but maybe not being able to. So we can see that we start to escalate through this, and that's when there's potentially some signs that someone may be having some issues with gaming and it's moving from that healthy zone into some more of those unhealthy behaviors. So really looking at failing to fulfill duties at home or at work, giving up on social or occupational or other recreational activities. So when gaming starts to take over other areas of their life. And the gaming industry puts specific things in their game, as I mentioned earlier, in order to try to attract and encourage folks to play longer than potentially they necessarily set out to do. So a big example of that is our massively multiplayer online role-playing games. When you look at these, there's features that keep people wanting to come back for more or not wanting to take that break. There's no end to the game. The games encourage play and collaboration with players around the world. I mean, how cool is it? You know, I'm connecting with someone in Australia or China, and we're playing on a team together. Team play is required to advance, right? So all members of the team have to be there. The virtual world continues to evolve even if the player is not online. So folks are worrying about, you know, what am I missing? Things have changed since I last logged in and played, so I need to log in regularly. There are regular releases of upgrades and expansion packs. There's always new things that you can buy or new twists that are added to the game to encourage you to come back for more. Top players or teams can actually earn real money rewards. After players are invested in game, major tasks and missions or raids, whatever your team is trying to accomplish, become much longer and sometimes require a lot of hours in order to be successful with that mission. And because you've got that commitment to the clan that you're working with or your team, it's very hard to say, oh, I gotta leave, I gotta, you know, take my kids to soccer, or I need to go to bed because I gotta get to work tomorrow. There's a team obligation to play longer than desired, so you have that responsibility to other team members. So lots of things that can happen within these games and how they are designed to encourage folks to continue to play. So again, it's part of those risk factor things that we need to be aware of. And this ties in really to, you know, why does the industry want you to play? Well, really, we saw it's making billions of dollars. It is all about the money. It's about the sales and the sponsorships. And it's about the profits. Grand Theft Auto 5, when it was released, made $1 billion in sales with over 800 million in the first 24 hours. So when they're racking up dollars like that, yes, they want people to enjoy it. Yes, they want people to come back and play with it. And as well, when people are video gaming, they're collecting data about us. Companies collect a lot of information about what a player does and about the way they play the game. A lot of in-game information collecting is part of the initial agreement to which a player must agree to before you can even start the game. I think about different apps I've even put on my phone to be able to do things. You have to agree to these terms and conditions. I know I didn't read everything that was in there, but a lot of time you're giving them permission to take things from your phone, to see things from the phone, your phone or your console, and etc. A lot of the information is stored with and then used for future marketing purposes with you. Even liking a game or a store or a story on Facebook provides a lot of information about you, and it will help then the developers or their advertisers target you because you liked this in the past. We're going to advertise and try to entice them with this in the future. That being said, as we mentioned right at the beginning with our key message, you know, most folks can game and play game and do it healthy. It's very limited when people move through that and end up with that problem gaming concern. So the continuum reflects that balance between video gaming, our mental, our physical health, our academic and work responsibilities, our personal responsibilities, and social responsibilities. By increasing the amount of time spent playing games, other factors must be reduced since there's no amount of time that we can add to a day. Time is not something that we can create. So if we're gaming for 8 hours, we've now lost 8 hours of other things that we potentially could do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read you through a few different scenarios, and I want you to thumbs up in the chat. Lucy's provided our 4 different colors there. So our healthy, our reacting, our injured, and our ill. So green, yellow, orange, and red. When I read you this scenario, thumbs up to where you think it falls in the continuum. So here's our first scenario. Mike plays World of Warcraft every day. He enjoys the social aspect since he is kind of shy and gets nervous easily in real life situations. When playing World of Warcraft, he can be social and not have to worry about embarrassing himself. Over the past month, he is choosing to play WoW instead of hanging out with friends. So based on that, where do you think Mike is falling in the continuum of gaming? Is it healthy? Is it green? Is it yellow? Is it orange, or it's red? So just populate in there with a thumbs up for me. Perfect. So we've got a few in the green and we've got a few in the yellow. So actually Mike is in the yellow zone. So some of the highlights are that he's playing every day and that he's choosing to play that instead of going out with friends. So good job. Thanks for responding. All right, here's our next scenario. In 2019, a Calgary mother was charged in a child abuse investigation after a live streamed video showed her physically abusing a toddler and a baby who were interrupting her online game. After police reviewed multiple tips from the public in relation to the incident, they were able to track down the online persona and subsequently arrest and charge her. The video showed the woman roughly handling her young children, was streamed from gaming-related Twitch website and posted on other social media. So where do you think that scenario falls? Is that in the green, yellow, orange, or red? Yeah, absolutely. Very sad story, and there are numerous of examples of these types of extreme stories where folks are in the red and folks and individuals have either died or have become seriously ill or injured because of the gaming. All right, number 3. Amy enjoys playing online video games. She has noticed there's a market for selling in-game items and gold farming. Amy spends up to 8 hours a day farming for virtual items for sale in addition to her 7 hours of personal gameplay. She considers the farming activities to be work and separate from her online gaming practices. Amy finds that video gaming helps her cope with feelings of loneliness and sadness. Where is Amy? So we've already had a yellow and a red. So is she orange or green? What do you think? She's playing 15 plus hours a day. She's justifying it. She's not connecting with real folks. Yeah, absolutely. So Amy is in the orange. So since I'm only doing 4 and we haven't had a green one, we will know that this one is green, but I'll just read you through what an example of healthy gaming would be. So Stacy loves playing games on her phone and finds gaming entertaining and fun. She makes several small in-game purchases a week. She has a part-time job and she's saving money for college. She also manages to pay her credit card off every month. Yeah, absolutely. So Sarah's scenario 4 is green. So she's controlling it. There's none of those 4 C's in place. It's using as a source of entertainment for her, as opposed to coping with different things. All right, thanks very much for participating in that. I'm now just going to highlight some of the warning signs to look out for. So what potentially we could see and hopefully then catch within ourselves or catch within our peers, maybe a subordinate at work or our kids, before it becomes too drastic and can end up becoming then a problem gaming. So we're looking at some of the psychological warning signs. So mentioned earlier, starting to not engage in those other activities or goals, starting maybe to become angry, depressed, or anxious when they can't play. Dreaming or thinking about the video games, loss of interest in other activities that someone previously enjoyed. As well, arguing about or downplaying the negative impact, when someone tries to talk to them. Distorted perception of time. We've heard many stories of that in our different workshops where folks have just lost track of time. I'm just going to play for an hour and all of a sudden an hour turns into 5 hours. And feelings of excessive responsibility to that guild or clan or that online team. So those are some of the psychological signs, if they're carrying on conversations about that the gaming world versus their real world friends. We can also look for some physical signs. So things folks might be doing, or we might see within them, they're starting to have challenges sleeping, restless during the day because they're maybe not able to play. Maybe it's at work and they can't. Starting to see that decrease in personal hygiene. Our eating habits is another huge one when folks are becoming developing more of that problem gaming where they're not looking after nourishing their body well, just ordering takeout, things like that are simple so that they don't have to actually leave the game, leave the challenge or the quest that the group is moving towards. Headaches can be another sign, again, not fueling well, not hydrating. Starting to see their eyes can be dry, sore, red, starting to feel some of that muscle ache, from being in a position too long and not moving. Overall, our physical health starting to really decrease. And then as well, potentially even carpal tunnel syndrome, depending on, the movement that they're doing on that regular basis. So a few behaviors, we're starting to see decreased performance, whether it's at work, whether it's maybe a son or daughter at school, you're noticing their marks are starting to drop. Neglecting other important responsibilities, playing the game more, attempting to play it that first time that it's available, almost like that eye opener that some folks who are addicted to alcohol may have, right? As soon as I get up, I need to play this game. That inability to quit despite the desire to do so. So not being able to control that. Trying to read about the game, just immersing themselves in finding out a bunch of information on, if there are the secret items hidden and how they can help you then move through the different worlds. And even having game binges. They might think, what, I don't play Monday to Friday, I focus on my work and things like that. But on the weekend, it's all-nighters and binging can still be part of some warning signs. And finally, the relationships. So may resort to lying to folks because they're not allowed to play or they don't want people to know that they're playing. Would rather play with the video games and actually engage with their real friends. Decrease in parental time is primarily replaced with gaming and with online friends. So shifting, especially if you've got younger children, that you're not engaged and your family aren't engaged together, that it's more that real family within the virtual world that's supporting them. Blaming others for their excessive play. So lots of different reasons warning signs that are out there that we can pay attention to and know that there are resources and tools to help someone if need be. So what would be some gaming tips? Because we know there can be some health benefits to gaming. So let's see what we can do in order to help us stay in the green. Online priorities ahead of time. So whatever your work and responsibilities are, making sure that you have those set ahead of time. So if you know that you've got to make dinner or you've got a bunch of things to do, so maybe when you come home, deciding that I'm going to get these things done, and then all of a sudden, I'll have some time at 2 hours at the end of the evening to be able to play those games. The second thing we can do is just paying attention to how much time is spent gaming. So maintaining a journal, whenever you are looking at, tracking or finding out where you're at, whether you're at a good place, whether you're at a place where you could look to change some health habits, journaling and tracking is a great way to do that because it kind of sets your baseline to know that. So just even maintaining that, you might be surprised to be like, wow, I spend a lot more time gaming than I thought. We always encourage folks to do this, whether it's with exercise or eating, or you're looking at quitting nicotine products. No matter what, tracking and finding out where you are so that you can find out how you need to move forward, or if you need to make changes, or if you're okay with how things are going. And I just want to mention that Lucy's populated in the chat for us the tips that are showing up here, as well as 60 other hobby ideas that you can do instead of gaming for those of you that feel that there's nothing else for you to do. So just it's actually like a brainstorming sheet on what some other options are. And it's come from a great website, which I'm going to highlight in a little bit. So the third thing we can do to set ourselves up is to actually plan designated times for it. So having that clock nearby so that we are not losing track of time. setting an alarm even on that clock, that when that alarm goes, time is up, and making sure that you let people know, you know what, I can only play for a couple hours tonight because I've got to get this done. So I'll be checking out at 8 o'clock or whatever it happens to be. So set some of those boundaries right at the beginning. Turn off your computer and phone at the end of each night. I mean, that's a huge one, right? If we have those things on, especially if we're playing late at night, it can end up disrupting our circadian rhythm and our sleep cycle. So turning them off, shutting them off so that they're not making those noises, you're not enticed to go back and try to play them again. Our fifth one is just limiting the number of hours you are exposed to play video games. So you could do things such programming your Wi-Fi at home, locking away your device at the end of the night, and actually set goals that, you know what, it's going to be game-free or technology-free games on 3 nights a week or something like that, or 5 nights a week and I can play on the weekends, or whatever comes up and works for you. And then finally, ensuring that we actually engage in offline gaming social activities with family and friends. Right, that was one of the big warning factors, you know, when we start to withdraw and not engage in those daily personal connections that are so important. And I realize and acknowledge that the last year has been really a challenge, and so a lot of folks have been really looking at the gaming as that piece for connectivity, you know. And but now we have our outdoor space, nicer weather's upon us, so meeting outside to go for walks. Those folks that are in your bubble, that you're allowed to do with those types of things. So those handouts are in the chat, and if anyone can't download them and you would like us to email them, just pop us a message and we can make sure we can do that at the end of the presentation as well. So a couple other things I just want you to know: if you are someone who is playing games, what you need to recognize can be information that is gathered. So to think about your privacy. In 2018, 57% of Canadian internet users reported a cybersecurity incident, including being redirected to fraudulent websites that ask for personal information, getting a virus or other computer infection, hijacked accounts, identity theft, abuse of personal information, or other computer incidents. So when you're online and when you're there are some risks with that. So the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada has created some guidelines and some tools for gamers to set themselves up to reduce that risk of their information being stolen, that identity or those fraudulent acts from happening. So they recommend that first and foremost, you always read the privacy policies and terms of services and agreement. Like I said, I don't know how many apps I have on my phone, and I scrolled through them and said, yeah, I agree, because I wanted to use the app when I didn't truly read what was there. So take the time to actually read those documents. Create strong passwords for yourself. If you can, allow multi-factor authentication process where possible. Choose restrictive privacy settings. Don't share sensitive information like where you work or your home address. Be careful when clicking on links within game chats because they could be phishing attempts. Create a user email that is specific for gaming. So that's, you know, nothing else goes to that, but that's just all your gaming information. And use a nickname, you know, not putting out your real name can be just a simple way to help to disguise who you are, to make it a little bit more difficult for your identity to be discovered. So if you are concerned about someone and you wanted to chat with them about having a potential problem gaming or internet gaming disorder, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health recommends several guidelines to having that conversation. So you can go to their website to actually find out a bit more information. Basically, the first thing is just being non-judgmental. You may not play video games, you may not understand it. So just going in with that open mind and being willing to listen more and talk less. You know, be curious, find out about internet gaming disorder, the culture, learn some of the terms. You know, I've covered quite a few of them in here, but just understanding what some of those are. So, because when someone is very passionate about that, they're going to be using that terminology. So just having an understanding so that you can have that conversation can hopefully make that conversation go easier. So you're interested in learning about them and learning about what the gaming means to them, right? Why it's become, you know, so important to them in their life. Ask about it, express concern. You know, do you ever feel that you should cut back on your gaming, right? Keep the conversation confidential and respectful so that they feel confident to be able to share information with you. And finally, and always, you know, when you are concerned, making sure people are aware of the resources that are there. We listed a bunch at the beginning. I'm going to talk about a few more, but knowing that, you know, even though, you know, gaming has just been started to be included in the International Classification of Diseases so that folks can actually get that treatment, there is treatment and resources that are out there. It's new, it's constantly evolving, and it might take a while to kind of find that first fit on someone who can truly help someone move through that those gaming concerns. So a few of those specific resources I wanted to highlight. So Online Gamers Anonymous is the first one. So it was actually founded in 2002. So when you think way back to where that has been. And it is a 12-step self-help program. So very similar to like your Alcoholics Anonymous and so on. Computer Gaming Addicts Anonymous is the second one. So again, it's a peer support group for those who do want to stop. So great tools and resources on their website. The next one is Game Quitters. Lucy's populated in a couple of links within here. So Game Quitters, we discovered it through watching a W5 episode, and it's about 22 minutes long, and it was developed, and the Game Quitters was developed by an individual who was at the point where he was thinking about suicide and he knew he needed to quit. So he set up this support network for others because at that time there wasn't a lot available. So there's tools and resources for parents, for gamers, for the sponsorship and partners. And also on his website is the 60 hobby ideas. So that is where that comes from as well. So a great place to go and get some of those resources there. The other piece Lucy's going to populate in there is the e-mental health for the Durham region. So if you go on there, they've got some really great info sheets on problematic video gaming. So it's another good resource that you can go to get some specifics. And finally, often with video gaming, as with any addiction, there can be financial concerns. Folks are consumed about purchasing, upgrading, buying, and sometimes it can get away from us. So just recognizing and having those conversations to recognize that CISIP Financial Services is available to help with any of those struggles. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. I just want to throw up our resource sheet once more so that you know that you are not alone. There's lots that you can reach out to, and even reaching out to any one of these resources if you are concerned about your gaming or someone else's, they also will have some different resources that you are able to connect to. So I want to highlight before we close off, thank you everybody for joining, that we have another webinar happening next week. We actually have a two-part series on stress management, and Lucy's populated in the link for us there today. So hopefully some of you will be able to join us next week on that. We're looking forward to that one as well. And that brings us to the end. So I'll just open the floor and open the mics if anybody has any questions. Lucy, if you can stop the recording for us in case any folks want to chat.